Hello again. Thank you for bearing with me into the second part of the emotional development chapter. We're just going to go in further about emotional regulation now. We talked about emotional regulation, basically how well a student can alter their response to an emotion. Um, there are certain things you can do in your classroom that can help a student with their emotion regulation. First and foremost, just influence success. Be positive, hopeful that the student will be successful, and help them to stay positive in their attributes towards success. Um, these students will feel happier, they will feel better liked, and pay more attention and try harder to learn. Um, by helping a student develop better emotion regulation, uh, you are helping a student handle themselves better in the classroom. Talk about their emotions, be sensitive of their emotions, directly teach emotion regulation, how to respond correctly, how to control their regulation, and just be positive in your classroom again. And those are all ways to help with emotion regulation in your own classroom. Um, Understanding others' emotions, effective perspective taking is basically the perceiving emotions of another person. That's basically empathy. But empathy is directly defined as an emotional state, like what another person is feeling, that results from perceiving the other's emotions. Um, Empathy for another person may respond in three ways. When someone is having empathy, they are understanding how the other person is feeling. They may respond with sympathy, where they feel concern for the other's feelings. They may respond with personal distress, which is negative emotional reaction to someone else's distress when they focus on their own feelings. Or they may respond with empathic distress or feeling distressed along with another person. So, personal distress is negative in the sense that they are seeing someone else distressed and they will feel that way towards. There are age trends in understanding others' emotions, just like age trends in anything. Infancy to toddlerhood, the birth to 2 years, emotion contagion is present at birth. This is where we would say the mimicking of facial expression. You know, infants are able to mimic what they see you do. Infants will pay attention to your eyes, and that's where they can recognize your emotions the best. And then they'll respond to your emotion with a similar emotion. And then the social referencing, being able to justify their response by your expression, emerges between 6 and 10 months of age. Early childhood, children begin to understand and use emotional labels. They understand a sad expression and can say sad. They look sad. They must feel sad. You know, those sorts of things. They understand how to use the appropriate label for an expression or an emotion, and generally can sort, let's say, pictures of a facial expression into emotional categories correctly. Middle childhood, they begin to use less social referencing, um, but they can understand the complex emotional labels. And then adolescents, they greatly understand emotion, but they decrease substantially in empathy. Studies aren't directly sure, or aren't exactly sure why. There have been several theories brought up about why they may be less empathic, whether it just be their own inability to control their emotions very well. I mean, they understand emotion regulation, but They just have several different hormones and levels that cause them to have a flood of emotions, and it causes difficulty in that empathic behavior. Mirror neurons is what we're going to dive into further with the emotion contagion. I mentioned that infants are able to mimic an emotional expression by seeing an adult show an expression on their face. They are then able to mimic it. If they see you looking sad, they're most likely going to divert their eyes and try to readjust their face because they'll get upset. Same for if you're happy, they will look happy. Theories are present about mirror neurons that are basically millions of neurons that are able to respond the same whether you personally do something or watch it done. This is it's basically how it helps you bond with another person. So I'm going to talk about the infancy, mimicking an expression, but mirror neurons are also said to possibly be responsible for false memories. Whereas if you see something done or watch someone do it, you could eventually imagine yourself doing that same action. Say you watch someone shake a bottle of chocolate milk, is what our text explains, every day for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later goes on and you imagine it was you shaking the bottle of chocolate milk all along. That causes a false memory. But typically most neurons are not mirror neurons. Otherwise you would have very few accurate memories. Of course, individual diversity is present in understanding others' emotions. What does understanding others' emotions predict? Well, understanding others... I'm sorry, let me rephrase. What does understanding others' emotions predict? Well, the ability to have good emotion regulation, it just predicts greater academic achievement and social competence. So being able to understand others is going to help you socially. It's going to help you with your academic success altogether. This is why teaching emotion regulation is so important. Now, what predicts understanding others' emotions? Obviously, understanding emotion regulation is going to teach you how to understand another's emotion. Attachment, parent response to children's emotions, expression of emotions in the family, parent-child talk about emotions and abuse. All of these can affect how one understands another's emotions. All of these are going to play into their emotion regulation. Group diversity, of course, there are questions of whether or not girls and boys are more empathic than the other. So gender plays a big role in group diversity in this emotion regulation. Culture is one that there may be subtle differences within cultures, but Charles Darwin told us years and years there are, of course, classroom implications for how you can teach others to understand each other's emotions. A victim-centered discipline, I can associate with this one with the preschool where I work. We do a lot of this empathic training in our 4-year-olds where something occurs and there is a tattling incident, something goes on, and we all the time ask, how would you feel if so and so did that to you? We excuse me, we quote the golden rule all the time: treat others the way you would want to be treated. So this victim-centered discipline is just asking, how did your misbehavior make the other person feel? And it teaches empathy. The emotion contagion and social referencing, use that for your students' advantages. The learners are more likely to catch on to your emotions. If you are happy, they will be happy. If you are sad, they're going to be concerned and not themselves. You can use literature to help learners imagine the emotions of others. Novels are magnificent in teaching emotions and how to question how the other is feeling and investigate how the other is feeling, and always help your learners improve their emotion regulation. Help them to understand their own emotions, understand each other's emotions, and then regulate their responses and make everyone, on the same level and helpful in that scenario. Test and math anxiety could go back towards the depression and anxiety. It is, in fact, an anxious response to something. It's a negative emotional reaction toward a test in general. Math anxiety is the same sort of test anxiety, but is directly associated with math. This type of anxiety towards a test is linked to extremely reduced test scores in students as early as 3rd grade. There are several things that you can do to help this sort of anxiety. Help reappraise your students' feelings of anxiety into something positive. Perhaps tell them a little anxiety is just going to help you focus. Having that awareness and concern for a test, we can reappraise that emotion into a cautious behavior and perhaps do better on a test with that anxiety. Anxiety is linked to repetitive failures, so try your best to help a learner achieve success. Improve the testing situations. The better the low stress situation is, the more success is promoted. Have training days for test taking skills. Teach them the most appropriate ways to efficiently test take. Always avoid drawing attention to poor performance, and definitely avoid time limits. That could cause extra pressure on students. All of this information was found in our text. I hope that I did justice by explaining the emotional development, and I hope that you can really implicate all of these attributes of emotional development into your classroom, because it is very important that you understand this. It helps for a better, happier, peaceful learning environment with you and your students. Thank you so much.